Salut les gars! So 3 years ago I made the mistake of moving into a fraternity house. The story began when I was accepted into university in the city I'm currently living in. There is some sort of student accommodation thing around here. They actually have like a lot of different rooms and apartments. The problem, however, is that once you applied for that, you kind of have to go to the office yourself and just ask them for a list of free rooms. And if you don't do that, then you're never gonna get the information, because they actually never ever send out emails with it, even though they claim to be doing that. And since nobody knows that, you're practically waiting for ages to never get a room. So since I didn't hear back from them, I started applying to apartments on apartment share websites. And one of the houses advertised was a fraternity house, where you didn't really have to be part of the fraternity to move in, so that was fine with me. I never would want to enter a fraternity from the principle of it. I don't really like to be in a thing where they say, once you're part of it, you're always a part of it. Like, that concept is weird to me. I don't want that. I don't want to be linked to something I decide later on I don't want to be linked to, if that makes sense. But I don't really buy into prejudice usually, so I didn't really care for it to be a fraternity in that sense. And the only 2 people living there at the point when I was visiting it were really chill, and those 2 were the people I liked the most in the end still anyway, so out of that I decided to move there. Now my problem begins in the time frame in between, because I was still staying with my parents for a few weeks, and in the meantime a few other people moved into that house, and those were the ones I actually ended up having problems with. In the first few weeks everything was quite alright. I did hang out with them at the bar a few times and they seemed to be alright. They didn't really have necessarily my interests or my humor, but I didn't have any issue with them. But after a couple of weeks, they started partying more and more. And they started off with 4 days a week, which later became 5 days a week and eventually 6 days a week. The problem is my room was above the bar, so I could never study or sleep when I wanted to. How do you have a sleep rhythm? What's a sleep rhythm? I don't know. I don't know that now, so I'm not sure if that is a good statement to make here. Now, besides the partying, the problem is that they kind of only had about 20 songs, so they played the same songs on loop again and again and again. And all of them were showing their intelligence lyric-wise in a way that I wouldn't want to translate them or quote them right now, because they were that terrible. But besides that, there were a lot of other issues in that house. For instance, cleanliness. Now, we did have a cleaning plan, but nobody did really do their job, me included, I have to admit that, but when the others don't do work, why should I be doing that? Whenever I used the bathroom to shower, I had to clean the floor to not get my feet dirty either before or afterwards, because it was always full of dust or of dirt, or both at the same time. I don't even know how a bathroom gets that dusty every single day. I also feel like remembering that I cleaned the toilet a lot before being able to use it. I did never actually use the kitchen. I mean, let alone the fridge was something different. I wouldn't ever have put food into it, let's say it like that. And then everything was always full of dirty dishes, even though we had the dishwasher. So I mean,
I'm dead inside, dead inside, dead inside, oh I'm dead inside.
And in the meantime, I feel like they had nothing better to do than drawing male genitalia everywhere. Even though some of them were like 26, it still weirds me out that I was feeling like the oldest one in the house with 19. Like, at times I didn't even want to have visitors over, because I didn't really want to be associated with what you're seeing when you enter that house. And there's even a couple of weird stories that happened while we were there. For instance, a former very good friend of mine who I did road trips with stayed over for one of the nights between two of those road trips. And while we were already laying down, there was suddenly a whispering, talking voice coming through the floor up to us. But it sounded like somebody telling a story. It was really weird. Now the thing was, they used a music box to play like an audiobook while they were laying drunk in a room next to it. I don't even think they realized what they were listening to because they were so far gone. And then my friend moved to another kind of public room to sleep there, and then somebody came up to her and talked to her. And I don't remember what it was about, but it was very questionable because she didn't feel safe laying there anymore, so that means a lot. Then again, I guess sexual harassment was kind of normal there, because like years later on, when I wasn't living there anymore, a couple of my friends told me stories about things certain people living in that house said to them, and it actually kind of creeps me out, and I'm glad I didn't know that, because I would have gotten very mad. My favorite story from that house though to tell, and it's very, very weird. I had a friend over and we cooked some Polish soup, and then you heard screaming from a room next to us, and I was going there to investigate and find out what the hell happened now. So the day before they were partying yet again, and somebody apparently pooped their pants and left their underwear full of feces in the bathroom. So one of my roommates had like a carrying stick, I don't know why, but he took that to pick up the underwear full of feces, went downstairs into the room of another housemate to show them the underwear full of feces and did like shake it around, and then it fell off and the feces fell onto the floor.
Dead inside, I'm dead inside, dead inside.
Who does that? Which person in their right state of mind acts like that? I've been telling this story so many times to different people, and I'm always lost for words.
La la la, la la la.
The thing is, at the very end of the first semester I had about 11 or 12 exams to do, and I had fever symptoms, even though I wasn't even sick, because the constant partying put me into so much stress that my body just couldn't deal with it eventually anymore. And I did make a note asking him to be a bit more quiet for that 1 week where I had my exams, so I don't fail every course. Do you think they even cared about it? Because they didn't. And before anybody asks why I didn't move out while all of that was happening, I couldn't, because the contract was over a whole semester, and neither I nor my family has the money to pay for 2 accommodations at once. And my parents are living about 6 to 7 hours away, so it wasn't an option to live at home while the semester was running either, sadly. So this story actually was a lot shorter than I thought it would be, to be honest. Did any of you ever live in a fraternity or in a sorority, and what was your experience like? That's practically it for Storytimes about my daily life, I don't know how to call it. So whenever I will have a storytime in the future, which will be happening definitely in the next few months, it will be about traveling, and I have a few very weird stories from traveling to tell. So if you're interested in that, then subscribe, stay tuned, activate the bell notifications. I still don't know how to end videos